Hello everyone, Simon here. Welcome back to the Architecture of Dishonored 2 series. We are back in Upper Aventa, and in this video we will look at the Clockwork Mansion, which is that thing over there. So Aventa, if you don't remember, we are on the far western side of the city, beyond the Grand Canal, and up the mountain is the Clockwork Mansion. So, from this angle, what can we say about the Clockwork Mansion? First of all, we don't see any clockwork yet. No clockwork on the outside of the mansion. Secondly, you'll notice that the exterior walls are mostly closed. So if you look at that, blank walls, no windows. I mean, there are a few windows there, but not many. And in fact, most of the building has no windows. And then there's like a few windows there, but then the bottom parts have no windows. So it resembles maybe a fortress, maybe a bank vault. Usually high security buildings have fewer windows. Oh, prisons. Prisons, I mean they have a lot of windows, but the windows are really small, right? Small windows or no windows is usually to prevent people from getting inside, right? Fortresses is the most obvious example. Interestingly, American embassies in certain parts of the world that are not always friendly to the US have embassy buildings that look a lot like fortresses. Anyway, but let's not get into the foreign policy decisions of the United States of America. So if you expect that you might get attacked, you would build your building like this so it's more easily defensible. That's not what's going on here though. Although maybe you may argue that it's kind of like a bank vault. In this case, it's more that the building is inward facing. Like it's more interested in itself. Like it's interested in what's inside the building. Although it is internally focused, there is ornamentation on the outside. So we have like these pilasters and then these cornices, right? You see it's kind of carved a little bit. We have like little arches in the walls. Right, so we have a bit of ornamentation on the outside, but not really. Like from the outside, it's really just two simple shapes. We have like a rectangle, and then we have a circle. And then there's another rectangle back there, but you can't really see it. There's a bit of a bridge between the circle bit and the rectangle bit. Keep that in mind. This will be relevant later on as we look inside the building. For the most part from the outside, it's not that interesting. Okay, let's go inside, right? Oh, also we are on a cliff. I mean, this is... you are unlikely to build something this big on a cliff like this. Cliffs are not as stable as you think, right? Landslides happen every now and then. So this is probably not safe. There's a waterfall there too. So keep this in mind. The waterfall, the circle bit, the square bit. We'll come back and we'll see more of these parts from the inside later on. Alright, so we are at the train station of the Aventa district. Let's go ahead and take the little tram carriage and make our way to the Clockwork Mansion. Don't worry too much about him, he's fine, he's just sleeping. This guy is Anton Sokolov. The story is that Bobby Jindosh, oh I didn't say this, the Clockwork Mansion belongs to Bobby Jindosh, who is an engineer, an inventor, an all-round smart person. This is Anton Sokolov. He is also an engineer, inventor, and all-round smart person. Bobby Jindosh kidnapped Anton Sokolov to try to force Sokolov to help Jindosh with some things. Sokolov did not comply, and that's the story. Anyway, let's go inside. The story is not too important to us, but except maybe to keep in mind that Jindosh is an inventor and engineer. Is there anything we should say? Oh, at the moment, the only way to get to the mansion is by the tram, which is a little odd, because you can't build this thing just by a tram. You have to transport building materials up here, right? There is a staircase down the side here, and there's a broken bridge. So there used to be a bridge over there. You don't have to take the tram. But even then, there are these staircases. I'm not actually sure how they built this thing up the side of a cliff. Like, you have to transport all the stone and metal and glass up the cliff to build this thing. I'm not sure how they did that. In the real world, there are some examples of like monks, Christian monks, and also Buddhist monks in different parts of the world, like building monasteries on the side of mountains or on the top of mountains. And they do that because they want to like get away from the material world, and they want to be, I don't know, closer to God or whatever it is. And that is usually very labor intensive, right? So then building those monasteries usually involves a lot of work over a long period of time. And but monks are willing to do that because they're monks and they're dedicated to their work, right? Otherwise, usually you wouldn't spend that kind of money, and it's also really impractical to try to build a giant stone mansion without road access. How do you get all these stones up here? I'm not sure actually. I don't think the game really knows either. It's possible that on the other side of the cliff there's a road. I mean, we're only seeing one side of the building, so who knows, right? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe? Maybe not. I mean, the whole thing is pretty steep in all directions. Anyway, let's head inside. Yes, enter the Clockwork Mansion. Alright, so we have the entryway into the Clockwork Mansion. And the first thing we might notice is there is no decay in the Clockwork Mansion at all. Everything is new and pristine, pretty much. So compared to the rest of the city, Bobby Jindosh is doing really well. Like every other part of the city we've seen so far, there has been significant decay, like things are falling apart. But not here, not in the Clockwork Mansion. So plenty of losers in Karnaca, but Bobby Jindosh is not one of them. Bobby Jindosh is a winner, and his house is very well maintained, very clean, very tidy. Alright, past the entryway. The windows, they're kind of windows but you can't see outside. So they're not really windows? I mean, there's the idea of a window, but they don't function as windows in the sense that you can't actually see outside. Alright, so past the... oops, wrong button. Past the entrance... oh, we have this room, look at this. What's going on here? We have some machinery. Bobby Jindosh is an engineer, as we said, and these are some of his machines, if you can make any sense of them. And then there's this thing, curious. Alright, little wood strips. And I guess this thing moves, maybe? And then we have more machines. And then we have a little sculpture here, and uh-oh, what's wrong with this house? Where's the rest of the house? Is this the entire house? This can't be the entire house. What's wrong with this house? Well, it turns out that the Clockwork Mansion has a lot of clockwork in it. And the entire room transforms mechanically when you pull the lever. Ah, look at that. So the initial configuration is just a closed box, and there's no... it doesn't... like, there's no... practically speaking, the closed box doesn't do anything, right? Why would there be a closed box? The only purpose of that is to, one, discourage people who are not invited. And secondly, if you are invited, it is to set up this transformation, right? So the closed and the rather unremarkable nature of the initial impression is to set you up for the surprise of this transformation when you do pull the lever, and it becomes a much bigger room, much more impressive room than before, in this really complicated mechanical way. So it's a showpiece, basically. Alright, so now that the room has transformed, what is it now? It is still a display, to be honest. It is still displaying the various mechanical inventions of Bobby Jindosh. This is the guest area, by the way. It does say no admittance except by appointment. We will go in there later on. Let me stay in this area first, because it's sort of like a lobby, a display area, kind of like a museum to Bobby Jindosh himself. Can you imagine your house has a museum to yourself? We can kind of see what kind of person Bobby Jindosh is, right? He thinks very highly of himself and his own inventions. We get up to here, and then we have more displays, another hall. And then when we get to here, we start to see what we're looking at. Remember the circular building at on the right-hand side from before? And then we had the bridge, and then on this side we are in the rectangular building now, right? Does that make sense? Remember how when we were looking at the outside of the building, there was the rectangular bit, and then the bridge, and then the circular bit. Well, here we are. There's a circular bit, and there's a bridge. We're not done with this room, though, because if we pull the lever again, this room also transforms from one display room, and then it closes there. I guess now we're trapped. We can't get back out. It transforms from one display room into a different display room. With slightly different displays, but otherwise... So now it's a bigger display room that displays slightly different things. I guess more of the windows are open and the skylight's open. But functionally, it's basically the same room as before, just slightly different displays, right? Conveniently, there's a map here. Alright, so this is the map of the mansion. Alright, so what are we looking at? The entrance was here, and then this was the closed room before. The staircase is here, is when you pull the lever, the staircase is open, and then you can go up. And now we are here in what is called the atrium, right? We are here. I was saying there's a guest area back here, number 2 guest area. So if we went through the door, we get to the guest area here. And then downstairs, so -1, downstairs is an assessment chamber. We'll come to that later on. And then over here, the circular thing, it's a 3-story circular thing, that is called the laboratory. And then there's the bridge, right? So we are here, the bridge is there, the laboratory is there, and then we have 2 elevators. Alright, does that make sense? Oh, there's also the private area. Number 3 is private area. So downstairs, you go in, you turn to the left, this is the guest area. Upstairs, you turn to the left, this is the private area. And then there's laboratory, and this is like the entryway, basically. It's a really big and fancy entryway, the entry atrium. Okay, that's the map. So this is the atrium. So the private area is through that corridor back there. Is there anything we need to say about this so far? Not really. But again, it's like everything is pristine. Everything is very clean and very well maintained. How are the furnishings? It's mostly wood on the inside. That's interesting. You will remember that wood is usually made for the high-tech stuff. And this is very high-tech, right? This is a machine house. Anyway, so we cross the bridge. Here's the bridge here. If we jump up a little bit, you remember there was a waterfall underneath the bridge? That's the water there. And there's the waterfall down there. There's a vendor district where we were before, looking this way. Right, very cool. And then like the guest area is down there, and the private area is up there. But even here you can see there's very few windows, right? Everything is looking inwards. And then over on this side, this is the laboratory. Regarding the bridge, pull this up. That happens. that is a very elaborate drawbridge. So in the game, what happens is that initially the drawbridge is up and that door back there is locked. And the challenge of the game is to make it from the entrance to the laboratory while working your way through the guest area and the private area to get to here. You're trying to like stop Bobby Jindosh and rescue Anton Sokolov along the way. This thing is incredibly complicated because a normal drawbridge is just one piece, right? It's just one piece of wood, and like you have a moat, you have a bridge across the moat, and then you just lift one piece of bridge, and that's the drawbridge. This drawbridge has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 10 there. Let's say maybe like 40 or 50. About 50 panels? 40, 45 panels? So instead of one panel and that's your bridge, you have like 50 panels. And from an engineering perspective, sure, it looks cool. But from a practical perspective, the more moving parts you have, the more parts that can break. Remember back in the last video, back in Adam Maya Institute, I was talking about on the roof there was like the louvers. There was like the Venetian, outdoor Venetian blinds, and I was saying like, you know, having all those little pieces makes it very easy to break. This is the same concept. When you have so many moving parts, the more parts you have, the more parts that can break, right? And imagine if just one of these pieces jam, then the thing is like half broken already. So if you have one drawbridge piece, that's one thing that can break. If you have 50 pieces, you have 50 pieces that can break. Like you have to maintain 50 pieces instead of maintaining just one piece. So like, it's not practical, right? It's not. And it's probably a nightmare to maintain this thing. Keep everything oiled, make sure everything is aligned, and you know, clean everything. And in a way, this really describes or reflects Bobby Jindosh's personality. Is that he does all these elaborate things that are overly complicated and not practical. But we'll get more into that later on. And we'll see a lot of examples of this in his house, right? Now, this is the laboratory. The laboratory is circular. There are 3 stories. There's another story below us, by the way. And the gimmick in the laboratory is that the lab modules can be reconfigured, right? So we changed that from optics to woodwork. Optics, you see the camera there and the lights there. So this was the optics lab. And now we're changing this into the woodcraft lab. And now you can go, oh, look at that. We have like a table with a grinder and a vise and some wood pieces, and then some tools and carving tools and wood pieces. So this is the lab. You can reconfigure different parts of the lab. And then over on this side, what happens if I choose to put the woodcraft here? Does it put the... Because currently the woodcraft is on that side. This would move the woodcraft to this side, and then this was anatomy, right? Right, this is the anatomy. Does the anatomy move over here? Oh, it sure does. Okay, so this... So now we had woodcraft over there and anatomy over here. I just decided to switch them around. And now anatomy is over there and woodcraft is going to be over here. Right? And there's 5 different possible modules, and you can move each module into either the left side or the right side as you choose. Right? Cool, right? Very, very cool. Very cool. Except that it doesn't actually save you any space, because in order to have all those modules ready to go, there's another room down there where the other modules are that you're not using. So why don't you just have the thing not move, and then just have like 5 different labs on over 2 floors? The machinery doesn't actually save any space, because the space where the machinery is as big as the room, and so then you could just have two rooms instead of just one room that changes between two things. You need to have two rooms, and so in fact throughout the entire house you find the same thing, is that there are these rooms that have two different configurations or three different configurations sometimes. But if you think about it, it takes up as much space as just having three different rooms. And so none of this is practical, but it is very cool, right? Engineering wise, it's very cool. In terms of the style of this room, you'll notice that it's less decorative, less ornamental, and more functional. The walls are now bare stone, in fact bare concrete, I think. Yeah, so this is just a big concrete panel. The columns are these steel mechanical looking things. They look like they can move, but in the game they don't actually move. In theory, this screw can turn and that can move the things up and down, in theory. Right, and then the ceiling, what is the ceiling? It's kind of just black, I can't see it. I think it's just steel, right? So once we get past the public areas, once you get past the areas where you're trying to impress your guests, once we get into the laboratory, everything is very functional and a lot less decorative. What's going on here? Diagrams. Enigma door draft blueprint. Anyway, let's not get too distracted by this. This is a door with a lock on it. Oh, wait a minute, is this... I think this is, it refers to a door in a different part of the game, I think. Anyway, let's not get too distracted by that. I just thought that was interesting. I didn't see that before. Alright, so regarding the, oh, not there, here. Regarding the other floor, let's go downstairs first. Remember how I said, like, the lab, the machinery for the lab takes up as much space as the lab itself. Right, so then we have main laboratory is where we are now. Level 1 is maintenance. The maintenance level is here. So this is the machinery, and then all the modules that you're not currently using is down here. And so, like, you would think, why don't you just have a two-story laboratory and then just use these labs without having them move up and down? I mean, you can just come down here and work on the lab down here, right? There's so much space that's not being used, and then there's this whole outer ring that doesn't serve any function. We can look at the machine move down here. I don't know if this is interesting or not. You pull the lever and the room will reconfigure. I mean, just think about how complicated this whole thing is. How much space that would take. How many moving parts there are. And if any of these break, right? If any of these floors break, then the whole thing stops working and you have to, like, fix the thing. And it doesn't save you any space because it just takes up the same amount of space. Completely impractical. And overly elaborate. Alright, let's go back upstairs. Maintenance main lobby, and then level 3 there's an office. The office is much less complicated. It's just a little mezzanine thing overlooking the lab. There are more tables up here. This is the office. It's not that big, actually. He's got some books, he's got a table, and I guess this is where he does his paperwork. There's a window here, but it's perpetually closed, it seems. I mean, all the closed windows, it implies that Jindosh doesn't really care about the outside world. Like he's only interested in his own experiments, his own inventions. Over here we have some machinery, which is necessary to drive the contraption, right? And curiously, there's a little bed and table here. I don't think Jindosh sleeps here. I'm not sure though. This looks like there's a space for like an engineer to keep the whole machinery working, like not Jindosh himself, but like he would hire an engineer to make sure all the stuff keeps running. In the game, there's never anyone actually here aside from Jindosh himself, so not too sure about this. Let's go back down to the main laboratory. I mean, I say that the laboratory modules don't save any space, but it is interesting that he set this up like this, right? There's two sides, and each side could be one of these modules. Let's go to like weaponry, chemistry, and it implies that he is working on two things at once, right? It implies that he's doing some sort of multidisciplinary research, as in, you know, at any one time he'll be doing two things. He might be doing the effects of weaponry on anatomy, for example. So if you have the anatomy module on one side and the weaponry module on the other side, maybe he's looking at how the weapons work on anatomy, right? Or if you say you have chemistry and optics, he might be looking at how to combine chemistry and optics in, right? Or if you're like doing woodcraft and chemistry, you might look at like doing the chemical properties of wood. So it implies that he's looking at like he's not looking at these things in isolation, and he's combining two different things at a time. Or, you know, that's what it implies to me. And like he's like, well, what is the interaction between weaponry and woodcraft? Can you make wooden weapons? That seems silly, right? Anyway, so this is the laboratory. It is actually completely closed with the outside. It has no windows at all. So like very inward looking. Let's go back out here, and let us look at the other side, that side of the building. We do need to go back downstairs. Let me press this button again. Pull the lever. And let's go into the guest area next. We'll wait for the stairs to form themselves. Right. So going through here, atrium exit is that way. And then this way, waiting room, elevator, guest area. Right. There's a bit of a storage nook over here. Not sure what's going on there. In the gameplay, there are guards here. And you can come in here to hide from the guards, right? Like that. You can hide from the guards like this. I think this is put in here because of gameplay reasons. Because why would you have like this thing beside your guest hallway? It doesn't make any sense. Oh, you might see like piles of things like this on the ground every now and then. These are clockwork soldiers. This is one of Bobby Jindosh's inventions. They're robots that kill you if they don't like you. Right? They're robot soldiers, basically. And I've destroyed them. That's why they're lying on the ground in pieces. Alright, atrium exit elevator. Okay, so this is the guest area. It's brightly lit, that's cool. There's a fancy waterfall. So there's a waterfall there, right? Remember the bridge between the circular thing and the rectangular thing, which is the atrium and the laboratory, and then there's the bridge, and then there's the little waterfall. This water goes into that waterfall, which is like out there, the waterfalls in that direction. Alright, guest area. First of all, what is this? This is a sort of a sitting area for guests. Alright, cool. Just basically just chairs. And then over here we have food, right? You can eat while you wait. And somebody has been eating at some point. Here we have a bit of a dining table, a dining room. There's no food on this table, which is kind of weird. Why is there no food on the dining table? If we pull this though, the table falls away, and then we get a pool table. So it changes between a dining room and a pool room. Alright, cool. Not bad. Yeah. Pull that back. Very nice. Out here we have this thing. There's also a security device back here. I'm just gonna pull all the levers, right? So we have a harp and a piano. But when you're not entertaining guests, you pull the lever and this thing. This is a security device. It's called an arc pylon. It basically zaps you with electricity if it doesn't like you, right? So this is a security device. So either you have security on or security off in this area. Alright, cool enough. And then back here we have waiting room. Oh, elevator is back here, by the way. That's the elevator. Waiting room, and then we have more sitting areas. You notice we have some bare rock here. You remember how the mansion, or the Clockwork Mansion is built on top of a cliff? So now we are on the other side of that now, right? So a vented district is all the way back there. So this thing backs into a mountain. So there are no roads back here. I was saying, well, how did you build this thing? Maybe they had roads on the other side of the mansion. No, on the other side of the mansion, it's just mountain. This is just rock. And in fact, I think some of this structure is carved out from the rock. Like, what is this? Is this concrete, or is this just the column carved out of the rock? Not sure. So that's just bare rock, and then there's more bare rock down there, actually. Is that water? Oh, it is. Right, so there's this here. A bit of a fountain. Interesting. And then this goes back out to the corridor, right? This is the waiting room. And apparently you wait here if you read the sign. Wait inside. Bobby Jindosh will escort you to the assessment chamber for a demonstration of the Clockwork Soldier. So the idea is that the Clockwork Soldier is one of Jindosh's most famous inventions. And people would come to his Clockwork Mansion and he would demonstrate the Clockwork Soldier, and he would sell them, the soldiers, for a very high price. So these are very expensive mechanical soldiers that rich people in Karnaca would buy to, I don't know, provide security in their homes, I guess. Or maybe just because it's cool. So the assessment chamber, if we pull the lever, the waiting room lowers to this level, and the assessment chamber is down there, in fact. There's a glass ceiling over the interior of the assessment chamber where you would see the Clockwork Soldiers doing their thing. The lighting's a bit awkward here though. The lighting's kind of like in your face. I'm not sure why they chose to do that. Usually you put the light... I mean, look, the way the light reflects off the glass there, you can't actually see through the glass very clearly. What should happen is that the interior of the testing chamber should be lit, and the exterior should not be lit. You know how two-way glass works? That way, the light doesn't reflect back into you, and then you can see the other side clearly. So when you have glass, whichever side is more brightly lit has a hard time seeing through to the other side. So if the other side of the glass was lit, then we can see through easily. Whereas if this side of the glass is lit as it is now, then the glare from the glass on this side will prevent us from seeing through the glass. So the lighting here doesn't make any sense. If this is supposed to be a display, like if Jindosh is supposed to be showing off his Clockwork soldiers inside the glass box, then the inside of the glass box should be lit and not the outside. So, not sure about this. I mean, this looks dramatic, that's for sure, because we're like under the mountain, under the rock. It's this whole thing that's carved out of the side of the mountain, and this is very spooky. And the dramatic lighting makes it more spooky, but it's not useful, is what I'm saying. We can go inside the assessment chamber. Let's go down there. We do have to hop over to basically the service area. So the public is not supposed to come back here, but if we, you know, hop the wall and sneak back here. The assessment chamber, so look at this, significantly less well furnished. So once we get past the public areas, it's a lot less tidy. Is this rubbish? There's a pile of rubbish underneath the stairs. Okay, so you're not supposed to come back here as a guest. But just to show you from the inside of the chamber. So it's a bit of a maze. And I think the idea is that you do live testing. Maybe you drag a poor human in here, and then they would try to fight the Clockwork Soldier, and they'll get cut to pieces by the Clockwork Soldier. And you see how, since the light is on the outside, we can see through to the outside very clearly, but from the outside it's kind of hard to see. And again, I don't know why the outside is lit and not the inside. It would make more sense for the inside to be lit. Alright, so there's two configurations. Let me just try and find a button. So there's a maze configuration. And then there's a more open configuration like this. You can climb over this stuff. In the game, there are a couple of Clockwork soldiers in here, and they're guarding this room here. So Anton Sokolov, remember I said Anton Sokolov was kidnapped by Bobby Jindosh, and Bobby Jindosh turned this place into Sokolov's prison, basically. This is his prison cell. He was kept here. And there's a couple of Clockwork soldiers outside guarding him. And in terms of gameplay, we have to get past the Clockwork soldiers to save Sokolov. And this is basically like a boss fight arena where you fight the robots. I mean, here's one. I killed him there. And then there's another one over there, I think. I forgot where he is. Doesn't really matter. So that's what it is in the gameplay. Oh, you have to stay on it until it actually changes. In terms of like how this would work in the fictional world, I'm not sure. Because if it's just a maze with two robots in it, the robots don't do anything. It only makes sense if there's also a human in here trying to fight the robots. Otherwise, how would you demonstrate what the robots do, right? What the robots kill people, basically. But how do you demonstrate the robots killing people without dragging a person in here and having him killed? So I think that's what happens in here, not sure. There's no bloodstains on the floor at least, so maybe it's not that gruesome. Alright, so back out of the assessment chamber. Back here we have some service things. This is power, high voltage, electrical things, I guess. Oh, out here. Oh, crap, I didn't mean to actually jump over. Out here, I think those are meant to be hydroelectric turbines. Remember how there's like water coming down back there? So up there was the guest area, right? And the water flows down. I think these are hydroelectric turbines, and this is generating electricity to power the Clockwork Mansion, I think. And then down here, the water flows out to the little river between the laboratory and the atrium, right? Anyway, let me just get back out before I get lost down here. Excuse me, I need to do that. Alright, great, back up. Hydroelectricity. This, I think, is the only example of hydroelectricity in the entire game. Interesting that the rest of the city is powered by either whale oil or wind turbines. And only Bobby Jindosh's personal house is powered by hydroelectricity. So behind here, I think these are meant to be the generators, right? Yeah, these are the generators, and then they power all the machinery in the rest of the house, I guess. Over here we have the kitchen. The kitchen, fairly well maintained, like slightly less clean than the public areas of the mansion, but otherwise pretty nice and still pretty tidy. There's this thing here, let me pull this. Remember up in the guest area there was a dining table that switched places with the pool table. That dining table is here. And that's the pool table now. This is good, isn't it? Because the kitchen is right there. Isn't that great? So you cook the food in the kitchen, you pull the lever, the dining table comes to you. I mean, by you I mean like you're the butler, I guess. And then you can set the table with the meal, and then you pull the lever and the dining table goes back up, and then you serve the meal like that, and you don't even have to go up there. You don't have to take food anywhere, like the table comes to you and you set the table, and then after they finish eating you bring the table down and you clean the table and you do the dishes. Very fancy. Very, very fancy. This is interesting. I'm not sure why there's like decorative things down here in the kitchen, because that doesn't really do anything, right? And like there's little decorative elements down here in the kitchen. Curious? Curious. Because guests are not supposed to come down here, so like, why would there be decorative things down here? And then if we come back here, this was the waiting room from before. Remember we came down the waiting room from the guest area? One more little thing before we get back up. So on the other side of the assessment chamber, there's private. There's a little service corridor back here. More machineries. More machinery, and then if we come over here, this is the laboratory. This is the elevator that goes up to the laboratory. In fact, let me just go up here to get back out. So from here we go to main laboratory. I hope this is not too complicated. You know what, let me go back to the map and just show you again where we are. I'm a little concerned that this might be a little confusing. There's a lot of... we're going around in circles a lot. Alright, so we're back in the lab. That's the laboratory. This is the bridge. Back here. Let me pull this lever so we can get the map back. Right, back in the atrium. So elaborate. So elaborate. Alright, so what happened? We came out of the laboratory, went downstairs, went into the guest area. This is the guest area, right? So this was the sitting room. This was the dining room. And then over here, this was another sitting area, and then this was the waiting room here. The waiting room lowers to here. And then you can go out to the assessment chamber here. So this is the glass ceiling where you look through the glass ceiling and there was the clockwork soldiers below, right? And then this is the service corridor and then back to the laboratory. This is where we just came through. And then back here, this was the water bit, and then the two hydroelectric turbines were there. the elevator was there, and then the kitchen was there, and the dining table was here, right? Which lowers from here, it lowers to there, just outside the kitchen, right? Okay, so now we are back here, and we're gonna go over here to the private area, right? So from the lobby, not from the lobby, from the atrium, if we go through this corridor, private. This is Bobby Jindosh's private residence, through that door at least. A little sitting place here, not sure what this is for. I don't know who sits there. Alright, back here we have Bobby Jindosh's private quarters. This is a bed, which you might think, well, there's a bed here. That must mean that this is a bedroom. Kind of. The bedroom transforms into a bathroom. Now there's a bath where there used to be a bed. Actually, now that I think about it, this wouldn't work. No, this wouldn't work. Because there's pipes. How would you make the water pipes join up after moving? You can't do this with a bathroom. Okay. Anyway, so the private areas, the bedroom transforms into a bathroom. And you'll notice that, you know, in transforming into a bathroom, this opening closed up. This used to be a balcony overlooking the public area. So because you want more privacy in the bathroom, so when you turn it into the bathroom, there used to be a door there and a balcony there. All of these closed up. I mean, this is still open because it's closed the door like that. And so then all the openings close up and you have this private bathroom, which is cool. Plumbing. I just thought of this. You can't do this. You can't have... Because the water has to come in from outside the mechanism, and then the wastewater has to go back outside the mechanism. So if the pipes move around, they have to join up seamlessly, otherwise you're gonna have leaks. Otherwise, you know, your pipes are gonna leak if they don't join up seamlessly. Yeah, no, you can't do this. Like in the real world, there are like revolving restaurants. They're kind of gimmicky. But have you heard of, like, you know, sometimes, you know, in a tall building, on the top floor of a tall building, there'll be like a revolving restaurant. And the gimmick is like the thing revolves, and so then as you're having dinner or lunch or whatever it is, you can see the city outside, and then it revolves slowly. And over time, you get a view of the whole city, the 360 view of the city. But the thing with the revolving restaurants, which is, you know, this also revolves, right? The revolving restaurant, only the seating area revolves. The seating area revolves around the kitchen. The kitchen is in the middle, but the kitchen doesn't revolve. So there's a ring of seating on the outside, and then like the elevator and the kitchen and the toilets and everything else is in the middle, which doesn't move, and so you have like an internal bit that doesn't move, right? And then you have a ring outside that does move, and the outside is only seating, and then all the piping and all the elevator and the staircase is in the middle, and that doesn't move. So that's how they make revolving restaurants work, because you can't have the piping also move, otherwise the pipes will leak, because if they move, they don't join up properly. Anyway, let me just pull the lever back. I don't think you can have a moving bath like this. Anyway, so when we turn it back to the bedroom, then that door opens, and then those doors open, and then... So this is a balcony, right? We're overlooking the guest area. So you can... Bobby Jindosh can look down at the guests. The guests can't really look up if he doesn't want to be seen. If he just kind of steps back, then he's not seen by the guests. So this gives Bobby Jindosh privacy, but he's also able to see who's coming to visit from up here. Alright, so that's... This is like the bathroom slash bedroom. Okay, let's keep moving. If we come out here... This is also a door, by the way. So Bobby Jindosh's private quarters is basically back here. Here we have a photography studio. Yes, so this is a sort of a... This is a photography studio. And here are the cameras. Right. And then there's a little dark room here. If you push the button, the whole room lowers. And then it turns into a dark room for developing photographs. Cool, right? Let's go back up. So the photography studio, it has a dark room in the corner. You have photo labs, and you know, for taking photographs you want to control the lighting, so there's no windows there. Now if we pull the lever, the photography studio turns into the bedroom. Which in this configuration, I mean, there's still the cameras there, but the bedroom faces this side, and now this opens up into a balcony on this side of the mansion, right? So a vented district is on the other side of the mansion over there. And then on this side, can I actually look? I'm just gonna like jump out the... How do I... Oh, that's not safe, is it? I want to see what's on the side of the mountain there. Let me just lean out, try not to fall to my death. Alright, so the cliff face continues that way. We are on a cliff, and then the mountain continues that way. So it kind of sits into... it kind of backs into the mountain in that direction, I see. Alright, so nice view. Look at that. Pretty cool. There's Karnaca. Let's go back inside before I fall off. And this balcony is not connected to anything except for Bobby Jindosh's private quarters. I guess he does some painting here, although the canvas is blank. Oh, there's some photography equipment here too. Right? Alright. Oh, you can close this. I don't think there's any point closing. You come back inside. Alright, so this turns into the bedroom, although it's still kind of a photography studio. If we follow through here... Wait, no. If we go through here... On this side, now we have the bathroom on this side, and this corridor leads to the laboratory. Right, there's a laboratory there. Right, so in this configuration, in this... Oh, there's a little office here as well. There's more machinery. Again, not much going on here. So now we have the toilet on this side, or the bathroom on this side. Actually, there's no actual toilet. Where does he poop? There's no pooper. Uh-huh. And if we pull the... lever, the photography studio comes over to this side. And I guess this is where... I mean, there's records there, and then there's shelves here. I guess this is where he stores his photographs. Huh, there's a gap back here. Curious. Right, and that is Bobby Jindosh's private quarters. Why is it so complicated? Why is it so complicated? I mean, look at my notes here. So, it's divided into thirds, right? And each third can be bed or bath. That's one third. The other third, this third is... No, that third is bed or office. And then this... Well, office. Bed or photography studio. This third is photography studio or bath. But why? Why do you need to... You basically have 3 rooms. Why do you need to move the 3 rooms around? I don't know. Or, to think about it differently, each third has 2 variations, right? So this third can be a photography studio or a bathroom. But why? Let's go through here. This room can be a bathroom. There's no toilet. There's no way to poop. Yeah, no, there's definitely no way to poop. This room can be a bathroom. Or a bedroom. So the only one that actually makes sense, in my opinion, is the bedroom. Right? The only one that I think makes sense is you can have a bedroom that faces inside into the interior of the building, or you can have a bedroom that faces outside and then the exterior. But even then, why not both? Why not just have like a bedroom that has one side on the interior, one side on the outside? I can't... Yeah, no, I can't figure out why this would be useful. This is not useful. No, I can't do it. No, this is not useful. It's just elaborate and extravagant and complicated, merely for the sake of being complicated. Yeah, no, I can't explain it. I can't explain why anyone would do this for any practical reason. Alright, let's go out here. Again, that's the guest area down there. Here, I think this is sort of like a guard room. In the gameplay, there are human guards. There are the Clockwork soldiers patrolling the house sometimes, depending on which configuration it's in. And then there's also human guards, and I think the human guards hang out here mostly. Because there's like a sitting here area here. For no particular reason, but it is fairly close to the private area, right? So Bobby Jindosh, this is probably the private bodyguards of Bobby Jindosh. And then if we go through here, we get to this point, and this is the elevator. Let's go back outside. So private guest area assessment chamber, right? So let's go to the guest area. And let's walk back to the front door. Right, so we get back out the guest area. Oh, I guess I should point this out now before I forget. Remember the waiting room? This is above the waiting room. There's a little office here. I don't know who works in this office, but there is an office here. The waiting room is downstairs. Now if you pull the lever, the office goes up, and then this was the waiting room. Okay, I just want to show you that, just for the sake of completion. Animals. Alright, back to the atrium. Now these are all the parts of the Clockwork Mansion that you are supposed to go to. There are other parts of the Clockwork Mansion that you're not supposed to go to. You can actually go into the machinery area as well. Let's do that. Right, so if you pull the lever and drop down here, I can see everything move into place up there. So in order for for there to be space for this machinery, and all this like folding walls and floors and everything moving up and down, in order for all this to happen, there are massive spaces under the floors, behind the walls, and even above the ceilings. And if you think about it, there's enough room here for like several more rooms, right? There's the actual room, and then everything in the room can transform. But in order for things to transform, the machinery takes up another room's worth of spaces around the room, in fact more than that. And so you gotta think to yourself, instead of having one room that transforms between two different configurations, why don't you just have two separate rooms? Instead of having one room that does two things, just have two rooms that does one thing each, and then you don't need any machinery and any movement and any contraptions, and you would accomplish the same thing and have more usable floor space. And that's why I keep saying that none of this actually makes any practical sense, because you don't gain anything from doing this. Oh, here's like behind the wall here. This is gonna be the staircase. The staircase folds up like this. Let me push more buttons. Alright, let me pull this. Let me get back out. I mean, this is very cool, right? I admit this is very cool. But you'll notice that like we don't have stuff like this in the real world, right? We don't have elaborate transforming architecture in the real world. And the reason is because it's not practical and not useful, right? As I said, the machinery it takes to do this takes up so much space that you might as well just have an extra room. And also, every moving piece is one point of failure, right? Every piece that moves can break, and it requires maintenance, right? All the gears need to be oiled, all the joints need to be oiled. And so it's just a lot of maintenance and a lot of repair and a lot of possibility for breakage in a situation where it is completely unnecessary and you don't gain anything from it. That's why we don't have like transforming houses like this in the real world. I mean, there's complicated machinery in the real world, right? There are factories where there are a lot of machines inside. If you think of something like a theme park with like a theme park ride, like a roller coaster, like has moving parts. I mean, there are certainly machines in the world, and even like big complex machines in the world. But those, they do something that you couldn't do in any simpler way, right? A factory cannot be any simpler and still accomplish the same thing. Like a roller coaster can't be any simpler and still accomplish the same thing. So they are not unnecessarily complicated. They are complicated, but they're not unnecessarily so. This is unnecessarily complicated. It is complicated for no real reason. And that's why we don't see this sort of thing in the real world. As cool as it is, right? As interesting as this is, it's just not something that you would do because it's kind of pointless. Let me continue. Going behind the machinery though. So remember, underneath this, there's space for another room, right? And now if we go above this, there's also enough space for another room. So this was like the upstairs area, and then there's a skylight. Notice there's no sky behind the skylight. Even the skylight is fake. So behind the skylight there's just electric lights. And then behind the electric lights there is room for another room. And then there's a lot of machinery back here, right? And then there's places where the mechanics keep the thing running, right? So there's this, let's go back down. How do I get back down? Here. Alright, and then let's go over to this side. This room also has... Can I get back? Oh, I can't get down there. Oh, too late. I guess we just have to press the lever again. Some buildings do have elaborate contraptions, but almost without exception, they break very easily. Like some buildings have micro wind turbines. Most of them, they don't work because they need to be maintained at least on a yearly basis, right? I bet you, look, think about this. Your car needs to be serviced every single year. Like every year you have to take it in for servicing. And they check your car to make sure everything still works. And they change the oil, they check the tires, right? They check the drive belt or spark plugs and all of that. So once a year at least, you take your car to the mechanic, and the mechanic just makes sure everything is in good condition, and if it's not in good condition, they replace the parts. And that's just your car. Your car's just an engine, 4 wheels. This building, like every single bit of this is as complex as a whole car. Like every room is as complex as several cars. Like I just wanna like let you understand exactly how much maintenance this sort of thing would require. Right? Like, so there's that bit, right? There's displays down there. There's also displays down here. There's also this, right? That moves, and then that changes place, and then that goes back up. Right? Extremely elaborate. Let me pull the button and get back out. Oh no! Alright. Pull the lever, get back out. Alright, there's all of this, and you can see like the panels fold up and down and they move in and out. Let's go up there. I'm just trying to think, are there buildings? Like often buildings have things that you can configure, but they wouldn't be machines, right? You would do it by hand. I mean, every building has doors and windows. You can open doors, open windows. And in some buildings will have like movable partitions, but even the partitions you just move by hand, right? You wouldn't have machines doing it. Because the machines, if you have machines doing it, the machines themselves take up a lot of space. To the point where, like this building, like every transforming bit, you need a room that's as big as the room that you're transforming. And so that's completely impractical. In the real world, there are things like folding beds. Oh crap, it's trapped up here. Let me jump onto the... Like sometimes there are folding beds, or like beds that can fold up into a couch, and you like pull it out, it becomes a bed, push it up, it becomes a couch. So like you do have like transforming furniture, and you sometimes have transforming building elements. But for the most part, those are much simpler. And you are doing it by hand, right, instead of using machines. Because that's the extent to which it's practical. What are some other examples? Like camper vans? Camper vans is interesting. Sometimes camper vans will have things you can like open and like pull out and then close up again. Things like the space station. Or like aircraft. Like airplanes, like you have chairs that tilt up and down, like tables that flip up and down. I guess like when space is at a premium and you want to like fit a lot of stuff into a small space, you would have, sometimes you have these like contraptions where you can change the configuration of a space, so you can have a few different uses. But in all those examples, they're a lot more efficient than this. A lot more compact and a lot more efficient than this. Like this, in fact, you would use as few moving parts as possible to achieve what you want to achieve. Whereas here, Bobby Jindosh is really using as many moving parts as possible. Like there's way more moving parts here than is necessary to accomplish what he's doing here. And he's doing it because it's cool. Like he's basically showing off how smart he is. But in a way it's not smart because it's inefficient. It's kind of dumb. Alright, so you can get back here. There's a corridor back here too. There's a service corridor on this side of the mansion. I mean, these windows don't actually go to the outside. These windows just go to the service areas. This was the corridor from the atrium to the guest area, right? So behind the window, there's a service corridor back here, which continues this way. I mean, there are signs, dining and lounge. This is the guest area, right? We have a lounge. And then we have dining. This is the dining table. Oh, at the moment it's the... Can I change this? Oh, here. At the moment it's the pool table out there, but let me just change that. Bring the dining table back up. Right, and that closes up again. Like here again. Okay, so you bring the pool table in here, but you could just have another room in this space for the pool table. It doesn't actually save you any space. This little thing, we can climb up here. What's going on? Now we are above the guest area and the waiting room. The waiting room is down there. We are currently above the waiting room. Here. Right, and then there's more stuff up there, isn't there? Can I get up there? Oh, I can. And the office is underneath us, I think, so now we're above the office. There's nothing up here. The guard room is there, the private quarters are through that corridor there. If we come down here... Waiting room? Elevator? Oh, we are on... Okay, so there's a dining room there. Okay, let's get back in here. And then continue down. There's this little crawl space. Underneath here, and then down here we get back out to, oh, come on, get in, about here. This is the elevator shaft, by the way. And then we come out here, and now we're in the kitchen and the service area and the hydroelectric turbines. Alright, so that's the service hallway. Back behind all the machinery. Let's get back out again. Alright, so I think we've seen the entire mansion, and I think we've seen the full complexity of the mansion as well. Like we've been through all the rooms, we've seen all the different configurations. Get back outside. Like, as I'm thinking, I keep trying to think, are there any good examples of anything like this in the real world? Not really. Not really. Like, I mean, seriously, something like this would break very fast. It would break very fast, and it would require a team of mechanics to keep this thing running. And it's just, like, way too expensive to maintain. And remember that this is, like, because this is a game, there's no seams, right? You notice how all the floors line up and there's no seams? You couldn't do this in the real world, right? Because everything moves up and down. There's always gonna be, like, a gap between the moving bits, because otherwise the moving bits will scrape together and they'll break things, right? So you can't have a seamless thing. You have to have some seam. Either that or the machinery has to be so precise that like you have like less than half a millimeter gap between two moving bits. But in order for something to be that precise, the tolerances have to be really tight. You just couldn't do this in the real world. If you like look at your car door, if you have a car, or you just look at your house, if you look at your doors, I'm looking at my door right now, right, like on between the door and the door frame, there's like at least 3 millimeters of gap between the door and the door frame, because otherwise the door would scrape against the frame if it's completely tight against it, and it would just jam, right? But here, if you look at this, there's no gap. There's not even one. I mean, there's maybe half a millimeter, right? This would just scrape together because no machinery is that perfect, right? So something like this, it's a cool idea. You can put it in a video game. If you try to build something like this in the real world, you would very quickly discover why it's not a good idea. Right? The machinery will break, the tolerances won't work, the parts will scrape together, things will break, and the whole thing will jam, and then it's just a non-stop effort to just try to keep the thing running. And it wouldn't be worth the effort. So, it's a cool thing to put in a video game. But there's a reason why we don't see this in the real world. But in terms of like storytelling, right? In terms of gameplay, it's very interesting. In terms of gameplay, right? So instead of just like walking through a mansion, okay, which is easy, but because the mansion moves around, now you have to try to figure out like how all these different spaces reconfigure themselves, and you use that. In terms of gameplay, you have to like get past the guards and you get past the killer robots, and so then you have to fight them in two different spaces, and you transform one space to another space to move things around to your advantage. So all of that is very interesting in terms of gameplay, right? And also in terms of storytelling, it really fits the personality of Bobby Jindosh, who is this mad scientist sort of character. He's creating these like overly elaborate contraptions that are actually quite impractical if you think about it, but they look really cool and they're really complicated and just really show off how smart he is. Right, so in terms of gameplay and storytelling, top-notch stuff, right? Having the architecture be an integral part of these gameplay ideas and these storytelling bits, very cool. Unfortunately, you would never get something like this in the real world. So very, very cool, but also very, very impractical. Yeah, in the real world, what would you have? Like at most, like some stadiums will have like a roof that can open and close, but that's like 2 or 3 pieces, right? So like a stadium roof, you would have like maybe like 1 piece, and then 2 pieces, and then maybe 3 pieces. So the roof would be like 3 pieces that moves. And that's it. Or, if you have a folding bed, like sometimes you have like a bed that folds into the wall, like you kind of pull it down and it folds into the wall. That's 1 joint, right? That's 1 moving piece, right? So the stadium roof is like 3 pieces. One other examples of like pieces of architecture that moves, or like a drawbridge, right? Sometimes you have a bridge that kind of pulls up so that ships can go past, and then the bridge comes back down. London Bridge? Isn't London Bridge a thing that goes up and down? Hold on. I think it's London Bridge. Oh, I don't have any friends. Oops. Don't worry about my friends list. That's completely empty. London. I do have bridge. I do have friends, guys. I just don't have them on my friends list. Don't worry. London Bridge. Yeah, this thing. Look at the. Oh yeah, there you go. Tower Bridge. Tower Bridge is what it's called. So Tower Bridge is this elaborate thing that folds up and down. I thought it lifts up and down, but no, it folds up and down. And that's remarkable, right? Like that's like a giant piece of architecture slash engineering that opens and closes. You have cars going through, and then ships going through, cars going through. And that is about as complex as moving architecture ever is in the real world. And even that's a real pain in the ass, right? If you could build a bridge tall enough not to have to do that, you would just build a taller bridge. Instead of having to do that, just build a taller bridge. And right? And nobody these like Tower Bridge is quite old now. Like modern bridges, you would avoid doing that if ever possible. You just have like a taller bridge. What other examples? I think that's about it. Yeah. Yeah, no, you're like you wouldn't do any of this. I wish there were examples actually. There kind of is. I wonder if I can find it. The Arab Institute? Paris. Arab Institute Paris. Oh yeah, okay. I mean, I feel bad about throwing my fellow architects under the bus like this. So the Arab Institute is, I guess, a cautionary tale for why you shouldn't have complicated architecture. So the Arab Institute, you see this is the facade. You see these things? All of these panels, they're mechanical apertures that can get bigger or smaller. You can see where this is going, right? So the entire facade is like hundreds of apertures that can grow bigger or smaller. In fact, you can kind of see them getting bigger and smaller. So there's a small one there. Can you see that? There's a big one there and a small one there. So they're like camera apertures that open and close. Oops, let me go back in there. The Arab Institute. The problem is that I think like within a year of the building's opening, all the apertures broke. Because it's just too complicated. I don't know if... No, they don't even say it. Visible behind the glass wall, a metallic screen unfolds with moving geometric motifs. Moving geometric motifs. The motifs are actually 240 photosensitive motor-controlled apertures or shutters, which act as a sophisticated bracelet that automatically opens and closes to control the amount of light and heat entering the building from the sun. The mechanism creates interior spaces with filtered light, an effect often used in Islamic architecture with its climate-oriented strategies. The innovative use of technology and success of the building's design catapulted Nouveau to fame and is one of the cultural reference points of Paris. Oh wow, hey, they completely left out the most important bits. The most important bit is that because there's so many moving parts, most of the panels are broken. They don't open and close anymore because you basically need a full-time engineer on site to keep checking these things and to oil all the parts to make sure they keep working. They break. They break so easily and so often. And if I remember right, they've basically given up on keeping the thing repaired. And so now it's just jammed. Whatever position those apertures are in now, they're just jammed in that position. And that is a real-world cautionary tale for why you should not have a lot of moving pieces in your architecture. And that's just the wall. That's just the facade. That's not even rooms opening up and down like in this game. Alright, so I should probably end the video here. I mean, I just want to like really explain to you why we don't have cool things like this in the real world. I mean, I do admit it's very cool in the video game. And the fact that they have these mechanics, these architectural mechanics, also tie into the gameplay and the storytelling. Very, very cool. But it's impossible. It's really impossible to maintain something like this in the real world. Okay, so I'm gonna end the video here. This is the Clockwork Mansion of Bobby Jindosh. In the next video, I think we go to the conservatory. Let me just check. I don't remember. Alright, Clockwork Mansion and then conservatory, right? So the next video will be the Royal Conservatory. I will see you there.